After complaining about not receiving his final paycheck of $915, a man discovered 91,500 pennies dropped in his driveway. Now, this boss right here was taking petty a little too far. A pay stub with an explicative, I like my good explicatives like anybody else, but a pay stub with an explicative written on it was left on top of the pile of copper coins that were coated with oil. Miles Walker, the owner of A.OK. Walker Autoworks in Peachtree City, decided to pay Andreas Flaten in pennies on March 12, 2021, after learning the former employee had gone to the US Department of Labor about the missing paycheck. We see a pattern here. I mean, you think? So yeah, so let's take a look at the photograph of the 91,500 pennies to the employee, Flaten. We have another photo to put up here with this right here. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. Now, Walker and his company will pay over $39,000 in back wages and liquidated damages to 9 employees, including Flaten, in response to the lawsuit. An investigation by the Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division found that in addition to retaliating against Flaten, the former employee and 8 other workers weren't properly paid for working overtime, officials said. Flaten will be paid over $8,000 in back wages and liquidated damages as part of a federal judge's consent judgment issued on June 13th, which resolves the case, court records show. So Francesca, you want to talk about petty, and this employer is stunned that this employee, the actions by this employer, we get very clearly why the employee went to the Department of Labor.
Yeah, when in doubt, just escalate. Some people only respond to that, and I think that clearly he triggered his former boss. Look at that, just like how much work, the work it took you, the time it took you to put all those pennies in a wheelbarrow and deliver it to someone's home. You could have just written a check, you could have just paid him on time, but no, you're fragile, and so you're gonna do this. And it just proves like, we venerate business owners in this country so much, and yet so many of them are not the small business owners. They're like mid to large business owners, to CEOs of corporations who we somehow think are deserving of all this stuff. No. Often they're trying to literally pinch pennies, trying to cut corners, trying to get one over on their employees, and employees are not having it. And this was a small thing. Okay, I'm gonna talk to the Department of Labor, and good on them for actually doing something about it. But it's just, again, it's like we only venerate the employers and we never actually think about who's doing the real work. Who's the one who's getting, usually 9 times out of 10, getting screwed over, and that's the worker. When are we gonna, it's not a bad thing to be a worker. It's a good thing to be a worker.
It is a good thing, Francesca, and thanks for raising that. We often forget that it is the everyday employee that helps that business that company be as successful as it is, or won't be if you're not treating your employees properly. And so this is a team sport. Owning a company is absolutely a team sport, Francesca.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why we don't get that as a country, and then somehow we believe that CEOs of these companies are deserving of, X times more, 400 times more, 1,000 times more than the very employee that helps keep that company going. And all you have to do, be small, mid, or large, be a good employer.
Right.
That stuff comes back. Most employees, if they're in an environment that edifies them and lifts them, they're gonna pay that forward in ways that helps that company continue to grow and expand. It's not rocket science, but.
No, but look at those pennies. My first instinct, honestly, was like, if I were a leprechaun, that looks pretty sick. Like, it just looks like, what'd you find at the end of a rainbow and a lucky charm? Like I like, and immediately, like my little leprechaun brain. Do we all have a leprechaun brain? I was like, bye. I don't mean any anti-Irish sentiment by that, but I was like,
no,
none
at all. The leprechaun
come to Papa.
But you know, even if I was a leprechaun, baby, I want to see a lot more than pennies. You know what I mean?
No,
Leprechaun it was the pot of gold, not the barrel.
So the leprechaun gets close and is like
pennies.
Yeah, it gets real mad and then does the whole leprechaun curse. It's a bad look. It gets worse from there.
It is absolutely a bad look. Shame on that employer, really, shame.